James Harrison. Just saying that name alone can invoke so many emotions in any AFC North fan. Maybe you think he's a dirty player. Maybe you think he's a traitor. Maybe you think he might be one of the best to ever play. But I guarantee you, he scares every single one of you. James Harrison is someone who, despite having zero advantages, despite drawing the crappy genetic hand that he has been dealt, he has found a way to leave a lasting impact on a game that says he flat out shouldn't exist. So regardless of what you think about James, this is a man who willed his way into the NFL. He is one of the most impressive individuals ever to play this game. So let's talk about the story of James Harrison. Now, I'm a Browns fan, and while some of you may think that may taint my ideal of what James Harrison is, I think that puts me in the perfect position to appreciate what James Harrison brings to the table as a player. Because fun fact, James Harrison played for every single team in the AFC North except for the Browns, and he's actually from an area close to Cleveland. So I have been able to appreciate the pain that James Harrison can bring to a body year after year after year. And I think I'm in a unique position to appreciate him as a player and also to just appreciate his journey. Now, for whatever reason, a common thread between fringe prospects who become elite players seems to be an element of being unhinged. Tom Brady is freakishly competitive. Antonio Brown is freakishly particular. And James Harrison is freakishly James Harrison. Yes, I thought I knew the story of James Harrison. I knew he was an undrafted guy. He came from Kent State. And what I really didn't appreciate about James Harrison's story before I researched it was that this is a man who does not owe his success to any team or any system. His success was inevitable because of his sheer willpower. So his story starts in the mid-90s in Coventry, Ohio, where James was one of the first black players to play on his high school's football team in the 90s. He went on to play at Kent State, so already James Harrison's story is a long shot, coming out of a small high school, going to a smaller Division I college. And as his career would progress, he would run into more roadblocks when he started college because James Harrison was deemed academically ineligible for his freshman year. But after that small hiccup, James Harrison absolutely balled out. He would accumulate double-digit sack seasons, and in his final game, he would sack his future teammate, Ben Roethlisberger, 5 times. And he forced a fumble. But then came James's journey to the NFL. And just like his college career, his journey to the NFL would start a little bumpy. For starters, he went undrafted, but he was able to make it through training camp and make the practice squad, which is a win for an undrafted player. And he actually bounced from the practice squad to the game day roster frequently as an extra hand on special teams. But that is where James really struggled during that time period, and he started to grow frustrated. He had a hard time accepting coaching and grasping different concepts. And this frustration boiled over to a point that James would give up on plays, and he even told his coaches not to play him because he wasn't up to his own standards. That is one hell of a thing for a professional football player on the fringe of a roster to say to a coach. So not surprisingly, he was eventually cut. And in 2003, the next year, James would be picked up by division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, bet most of you didn't even know that. And he was put on special teams where he again struggled. This would lead to the Ravens shipping James Harrison off to NFL Europe. And then he was eventually cut. Now at this point, James is at a crossroads. He had been cut twice in 2 years, and it just really didn't look like the NFL dream was going to work out for him. So he decided that if he didn't stick with the team this season, that he would quit football and pursue, and I'm not joking when I say this, a career as a veterinarian. Just picture that. James Harrison, veterinarian. The world's scariest veterinarian. So thankfully, the Steelers saved us from that reality and signed him again, gave him a second chance, and this time things worked out better because not only did James make the team, but he also made the rotation getting playing time. But James wasn't a star necessarily yet at this time. Now, remember in 2005, his pick six? Well, 24 hours before that iconic moment in the Super Bowl, there was a Super Bowl pep rally being held by the Steelers. And while that pep rally had almost all the Steelers players, there was one player who just didn't get an invite from his own team for his own team's Super Bowl prep rally. That man was James Harrison. So while he had that iconic moment, he still was not a solid roster guy. He was still a fringe roster guy. But that would change soon. But a little bit of a side note here, because while on the surface, him being left out, not getting an invite to the Super Bowl party seems silly. You have to add it on top of the fact that he was cut from this team and that now, even though he's made the team, he feels a little slighted. So I would imagine that there's starting to be a chip on James's shoulder being developed towards the Pittsburgh Steelers front office. And just like that chip on his shoulder was growing little by little, so was James Harrison's game. And just a few years later, James Harrison became one of the best 3-4 linebackers in the NFL, completing a story that seemed like it ended 3 times. It's remarkable. He went from a unknown stint on the Ravens to a even more unknown stint in NFL Europe, and somehow became one of the NFL's best defensive players. That is truly remarkable. Now, as we all know, James's NFL career was not without controversy, as he was fined a ton by the NFL, which probably led to James having just a hint of animosity towards Roger Goodell. And it's also worth noting that I think the early part of James's NFL career and him being cut multiple times definitely had an effect on him and gave him this kind of me versus the world mentality. And that's why James Harrison could come off as selfish. Now, that me versus the world mentality has made James Harrison great, but it's also made him a bit polarizing to many NFL fans, as there are some Steeler fans who will never forgive him for jumping ship to the Patriots in his last year. Now, another interesting thing I think goes into James Harrison's psyche is that I kind of think that James Harrison hates the Steelers. Like, he's played for the Steelers a bunch, but I think he actually hates the Steelers because every time this man gets cut, he ends up on a rival's team. In 2002, he joined the Ravens. In 2013, he jumped ship to the Bengals. And then in 2019, he went to the Patriots, which is a sensitive subject in Pittsburgh. And I think I know why. It's because James Harrison was seriously, and I mean seriously, underpaid his entire career in Pittsburgh. If you look at a guy like Jared Allen, who played about 12 years in the league, he made $98 million in his entire career. Now, James Harrison had a 16-year career, but James Harrison only made $44 million. And I think that those are two comparable players who play similar positions. So on that hand, I kind of understand why James kind of hates the Steelers because they structured contracts in a way that kind of ended up screwing him in the long run. So while Steeler fans might hold that against James, they also have to keep in account that they really underpaid this man his entire career. So when it comes to loyalty, I don't think he owes the Steelers any loyalty because if you look at how the Steelers paid him out, they never showed him that. Since James is, I think, one of the best outside linebackers in this generation in a 3-4, I think the fact that the Steelers paid him that is ridiculous. But what is James Harrison's legacy? A man who is so So James Harrison. James's legacy is going to be interesting to look at years from now. He is a player who played the game very violently at the exact time that the game started to change. He is also one of the most amazing underdog stories of all time. But he's also one of the hardest to like football players from a media standpoint of all time. So it makes his story and his legacy get a little cloudy. He's standoffish, he's sharp around the edges, but he's also inspirational. He's one of the greatest stories in football. He's a guy who came from a small high school, went to a small college, got cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers, got cut by the Baltimore Ravens, got cut by NFL Europe, and somehow found a way on his fourth chance to stick in the league and become one of the best defensive players in the league. So what is the legacy of James Harrison? Is he a dirty player who injured a lot of people? Or should he be remembered as one of the best 3-4 outside linebackers to play the game? I think the truth is somewhere in between. James Harrison was a player whose physical mentality was sadly outdated by the time he got to the league, but a man whose willpower and work ethic kept him at the top of a league that wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. And when you think about that, that's truly greatness. So James Harrison's legacy should be that he achieved greatness under adverse circumstances. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this week's episode of Worst Take. Let me know what you think that James Harrison's legacy is going to be. Are you a fan that hates James Harrison? Are you a fan that appreciates James Harrison? Are you a fan that loves James Harrison? Or are you somewhere in between of those three? Let me know in the comment section down below. But thank you guys for watching. And if you like what I do here, if you like this Worst Take series, then please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. And if you want to help the show out, please consider donating to my Patreon or buying a shirt. Either way helps a lot. But that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.